subject to whatever appeals might be taken and overruling. Or as one judge once said the first time he was reversed and sought solace from a more senior judge, found out you're not a real judge until you've been reversed at least once.
Okay, so it can really go any way. It's uncharted territory, pretty much.
It is somewhat uncharted. It's not entirely unknown. I believe that the law is there to support the rejection of the executory contracts. So I think given a strict interpretation by a trial court judge, that is probably the outcome you will see in the trial court here in Sacramento. That's not to say that we're not going to be asked to make accommodations, that we shouldn't be trying to make accommodations as we move through this process. Ideally, there are meaningful and intelligent discussions between labor and management all the way through this, and we'll be able to go into court hand in hand and say, Judge, we've got a deal.
Okay. And what about the public safety retirees who agreed to defer half of their payout before the bankruptcy? Now that we're in bankruptcy, where do they stand?
I think that was very smart on their part to take half now, because now they have the money, and that took place before the filing. Had the filing occurred before the payment of the one-half amounts, they'd be waiting in line like everybody else. They're waiting in line now, and they'll continue to wait in line. Eventually, we're going to have to resolve that. But whether we resolve that with a payment in full, or over a longer period of time, or paying them any interest at all, or whether we pay them the entire 100%, that remains to be seen, and that's where the adjustment of the debts and the plan will come into play. But ultimately, the judge has to say, and that is to what is in the best interest of the entire estate, not just for one creditor or another. If one creditor objects, or claimants are also called, and the judge says, well, that's too bad, the judge has the authority to go ahead and approve the plan despite what they contend.
And what do you think is the most important thing for the citizens of Vallejo to do with regard to this bankruptcy? Is there anything that we as Vallejoans can or should do to try to help the situation out?
Absolutely. The most important and critical thing is to stay informed and stay involved. One of the cost-saving procedures that the attorneys for the city have rightfully sought and obtained now is the ability to post all of the documents on the city webpage. Anyone can go to that webpage, read them, download them, copy them, as well as going through the federal PACER system, which costs 8 cents a page to copy that way, so it's free. The other thing, of course, is every time it does come up in city council discussions, come down and express your opinions. Democracy only works when people are involved. When I was in Vietnam, I asked a farmer one day out in the rice paddy why he didn't support the why he didn't support the government in Saigon, why he supported the communists, because he was found with rice. And through our Tiger Scout interpreter, he said, what's the difference? They both take my rice. Now, that's pretty basic democracy. But he was involved, he knew what the governments did, and he chose to go along and get along, which is what many of the city councils have done in the past. And I think that type of attitude is one of the things that needs to change. They have to learn how to say no, as well as raise revenues and use their funds more carefully than has been done. When we talk about an adjustment in the structure of how we do business, I think we need to make it from top to bottom, all the way from the time somebody walks through that door to apply to a permit, to how they interact with the fire department when they do a fire inspection, how they deal with code enforcement, whether it's in one division. Maybe we take code enforcement away from police officers completely and give it to people who are dressed in slacks and blazers with a city emblem on their vest, and make them try to solve problems, but they're not sworn police officers who have to enforce the penal code, but are rather concerned with having people comply with municipal codes, so we have a better looking city.
So a more streamlined municipal government and more vigilant, awake, aware, and alert citizens.
Streamlined government, more awake citizens, also courteous employees that are trained to do their job and respond to citizens' needs rather than saying, well, that's not my position, that's not my job, or the regulations say this, who are concerned employees and will pass problems on to supervisors and to city council people as well. Maybe we need an incentive program where we have people who bring in businesses get a piece of the first year tax revenues, or an incentive pay, as they call it in public service. But we need to change the way we attract businesses. What's been done in the past, I don't believe has worked. I feel that needs to be changed as well. But that's up to the city council and more especially the citizenry, because when we have these community groups where we put things down on pieces of butcher block paper on the wall, that's what becomes the goals and the mission statement and ordinances that are ultimately adopted by the city council. And when you're sitting there saying, well, let's do this, let's do that, I'd like to see this, I'd like to do that, you're actually starting the writing of the legislation. And that's an important step in the process, that if people don't come out to these group meetings, they never raise the issue, they never get involved. It gets passed over, it gets ignored. And when they let it get ignored, then they can't later complain about what happens. So stay involved, watch, read, be involved.
And what are your hopes for the city as it emerges from Chapter 9?
I have great hopes, actually, and I'm very optimistic that this process would move rapidly. Ideally, we'll be in and out as rapidly as we can be, maybe a year, I hope less than 2. And I can only see us going up and getting better. I think the Cancer Treatment Center with Touro University is going to be a major shot in the arm that we all need, and will put us on the map. It will also, I think, readjust our attitudes, and that's very important.
Okay, Robert, thank you very much for your words and for your guarded optimism.
Well, thank you for being involved and caring.
Thank you.